No
Yeah.
idea what that
Yes.
was like?
Somebody dropped the ball. You see, a generation of people thought, well, I'm going to send my kids to Bryn Mawr and Brown and to James and to Mason, and I'll send them to Princeton and Smith, Mount Holyoke. I'll send them to Yale and Harvard, and everything will be all right. And so I don't have to tell them about how awful it was in the 30s and 40s and even 50s. They don't have to know that.
The march's most prominent organizer was Louis Farrakhan, leader of the Nation of Islam. Farrakhan was deeply attuned to the struggles of Black America, but the solutions he offered were surprisingly familiar.
Will strive to improve myself.
He urged Black men to change their behavior and atone for their failings.
Socially, for the benefit of myself, my family, and my people.
The biggest surprise for me is that the message was not down whitey, critique the system as much as it was individual atonement, individual responsibility. Help me to understand that. I think that surprised a lot of people around the country.
In that particular moment, the sense of atonement was very real for a lot of us because we realized as young men that there were some of the trappings of materialism and violence of American society had gotten to us. And we had lost a lot of our friends. We had lost relatives to some of that violence.
We had internalized racism. Our people had internalized the way we were being treated.
Absolutely. And the way that we were being depicted in the media and the way that we were being depicted in the music.
We are here! We are here!
I was at the Million Man March. I respect the Nation of Islam values to bring Black men back to their families, to stop this killing in these communities, to stop the disrespect of women, and to really find and claim our place in America.
The trouble
Who taught you to hate the color of your skin? Who taught you to hate the texture of your hair? Who taught you to hate the shape of your nose and the shape of your lips? Who taught you to hate yourself from the top of your head to the soles of your feet? Who taught you to hate your own kind? Who taught you to hate the race that you belong to? So much so that you don't want to be around each other. No, before you come asking Mr. Muhammad, does he teach hate? You should ask yourself, who taught you to hate being what God gave you?
Most of us blacks, or Negroes as he called us, really thought we were free without being aware that in our subconscious, all those chains we thought had been struck off were still there. And there were many ways where what really motivated us was our desire to be loved by the white man. Malcolm meant to lance that sense of inferiority. He knew it would be painful. He knew that people could kill you because of it, but he dared to take that risk.
He was saying something over and above that of any other leader of that day, while the other leaders were begging for entry into the house of their oppressor. He was telling you to build your own house.
Hoo-dee-hoo! Build your own house. That's our problem. And we can talk and complain and complain. But if we ain't changing, they ain't changing, and the conditions that we face in America are not changing. The whole point of the Million Man March was a time for atonement for the black men, as Farrakhan put it, to atone for our behavior, for us not standing up, for us not protecting our women and children, for us not being responsible. Actually, Farrakhan had what was called the 8 principal steps in the atonement process. First step, pointing out the wrong. That's wrong. That dope dealing is wrong. That's wrong. If we were a part of it, acknowledging the wrong. I sold drugs. I did this to destroy my brothers and sisters. That kind of goes along with the third step of confess the fault. We can blame the system, or we can blame what part we took apart of the system, because most of the excuses cannot be used because they can't be universally. 2 poor people, one decides to take one route, the other one decides to become a criminal. Those are decisions made. Then you got to repent for all this. You got to repent, you got to atone, you got to ask for forgiveness. Then you got to figure a way to reconcile and restore the destruction that you caused. If you were a dope dealer or whatever, the crime was not that you were a dope dealer. The crime is that you remained a dope dealer, that you remain a person in society that destroyed your brothers and sisters, then helped your brothers and sisters. It's not rocket science. Then you need to find a union with whatever God you believe in. Allah, Christ, Buddha. I'm a Christian, so I identify with Christianity. You can be what you want. You're never going to see me having religious arguments with people, other than if they say something that I just know is totally wrong. I think the last argument I had, it wasn't even an argument, it was a discussion. Someone was telling me about all the souls they saved. And I'm like, you ain't saved no souls. And neither has the pastor, or neither has this minister, or any. You don't save souls. You speak the word of God, and God changes the man's mind and heart, and that's why he gets saved. Don't ever get confused, brother. He told me I should go read my Bible more. And I said, you show me the scripture where it says you got the power to save. No, it doesn't exist. But this is one of the principles, and I'm just glad I always had people in my life, militant people, conscious people, woke people, that always tweaked my mind and helped me to be different than anybody else, that encouraged me to be different. They said, you're different, so you're going to be different. You're going to behave differently. And I'm not saying I was an angel. I did nonsense too. And I repented and I atoned and I reconciled myself. Someone was on the radio today saying, well, I was asking the question to people, well, what have you done since the Million Man March? Let's see. Okay. I was taking care of my 7 younger brothers and sisters, 2 cousins. What else was I doing? I did a mentoring program a little bit after that with 15 young men. We went through from freshman year to senior year. Then I got back to kind of living my own life. And then I met a young lady, and me and her had a family unit and raised this beautiful young lady who's now sitting in her senior year in college. So let's see. I extended myself to my immediate family. I extended myself to my church family. And then I extended myself to my personal family. These are the type of atonements he was talking about. Being a responsible man. Everybody's not going to be out here in the streets changing the world. See, a lot of times when people ask you those type of questions, they want to compare you to Martin Luther King or something like that when they haven't done anything. It's easy to throw rocks. It's harder to build houses. It's harder to build a foundation. And we got to get to the point, as they talked about at the Million Man March, how do we reconcile with each other? Because we got so many people that will frown up at the different suggestions that their brother or sister may have. They won't engage that brother and sister. Like, I'll hear some stuff and I'm going to be engaging with my brothers and sisters. Okay, explain that point to me. So we can point and counterpoint that, and we can talk and we can discuss it. And hopefully one person's going to convince the other person this is the way to go. So I made a comment today, and I've just been testing this comment on people just to see the reaction of black people. The Chinese people are now moving into Africa, building infrastructures and everything. Is about 1 million people there. Guaranteed in the next couple of years, there'll be 4 or 5 million. Colonizing Africa, making it the new China. Now they're bringing in the same type of colonialism that we lived under here in America. But if someone floats the idea of us going back to Africa, oh, that's an immediate frown. I don't even want to discuss that because I'm a comfortable Negro in America. The point of justice doesn't move in your comfortability. Well, I done went to school, and when I say back to Africa, I'm talking about with a check, not just getting up and going back to Africa empty-handed. That does nothing. But in order for us to connect with our brothers and sisters, and Malcolm and so many others experienced this during the Pan-African movement and tried to reconnect with the African nation, because that's our heritage. And whether we like it or not, or got an understanding, the story of black people doesn't end here in America. It ends when we reconnect with Africa. But hey, maybe y'all some Americans. You're not going to hear Richard saying, I'm a African American. I'm a black man that happens to be in America because of situations that happen to my people, because of the destruction of my heritage, so on, so on, and so on. So this Million Man March put black men on display for the world to see in a positive light. And we thank Farrakhan for that. And we can thank the Nation of Islam for a lot of black men being up off the street, just like we can thank the church for a lot of black men being up off the street. And we don't see enough positive stuff with black men on TV. We see tons of stuff with black women. We got to understand the optics, as they like to say, and how they tell the storyline. And we got to look at how we see it. For years, I felt like black people are afraid to say, I'm black. This neighborhood is black. It's a certain way because I want it to be a certain way. Part of the whole problem with our neighborhoods, and it's got nothing to do so much with the sisters because they do the best they can. It's got to do with the failure of black men in this society. Not being able to provide and be there for their children because a lot of us didn't have our parents in the way that we need to have their parents. So it's that whole cycle that continues and continues and continues, and that was fostered by the system here in America that everybody keeps fighting to be, let's be political. You don't win in America collectively as black people. So we already know that we don't win collectively because we're not a collective. We take sides on whoever's going to feed us because we don't feed ourselves. We play politics, but you act like, say, we got reparations, and we went to Africa, and you are smart in this field, and you're good in this field, and you're good in this field. You know about building buildings and everything. All the stuff that we've done to help build America, everybody acts like we couldn't go there and compete with the Chinese now for our heritage, because that's what that ends with. So we sit around and act like we don't have the mentality, the know-how, the brains to go somewhere and reestablish ourselves in our homeland. That's the enslavement that Kanye was speaking of. I think he said it totally wrong, but I totally get it. You want to be a slave here in America? Yeah, I don't want people complaining no more. Yeah, what we gonna do? I don't want to march no more. To have a different outcome, we got to be different. And when I say different, we got to be so different where it's a shame that I got to separate from my white friends. But the only way I'm going to get free is separate from them. A couple of years ago, I walked out of my company, but mentally I had walked out years ago. But I had a responsibility to get our daughter to a certain level in a certain place. And once she got to that place, deuces, I'm out of here. I could care less if I never see them people again in life. And that's why I say, the only fight I'm concerned with reparations. Don't talk to me about any other crap that America's doing. Don't talk to me about Republicans or Democrats. I say they all the same. I'm going to put them all in the same bucket regardless of what you all say. I was watching a clip today, but it wasn't in the original episode of Malcolm X, where he had told the young lady she could do nothing. Then he ran into another young lady, and he told her the same thing I tell people. Racism is not a black problem. It's a white problem. And it's enacted in their homes. It's taught in their homes, in their communities. And that's the behavior that we're forced to deal with. So why do we want to keep dealing with that? Why do we want to put our kids in that when we know exactly what's going to happen once they go through this educational system? This educational system isn't built to liberate you. It's to further enslave you and assimilate you into the process that has been going on for hundreds of years here in this country. And we always wind up on the bottom. But everybody's always, and you know, if you want to do politics, but don't ask us to do any BS. Let's do politics on a big level. Let's do reparations politics, because that's the only thing that makes a difference. That's the only thing that's going to change anything for us. So this Million Man March, it was great. But what has really changed? We're supposed to be coming back to our communities, helping rebuild our communities, rebuilding our relationships with our wives and our kids. But it didn't take into account the people that were already doing it. So did anybody come back and restart that? When I did the mentoring program, it was a great thing because I got to interact with my younger brothers. I got to be kind of a role model, and that's what I do at my shop. This is my store. And I got a young brother come down today, and it's not a brag. I said, hey, come down here. I got something for you. Gave him a laptop because he's participating in the course that we're teaching. And he said, man, this is my first laptop. man, I'm standing in the black business. This is what I want to do. That's our responsibility, to constantly interact with our brothers and sisters on a positive message, even if they're not doing right. To try to get them on the right path, to try to give them some encouragement. Because if we're gonna be here, and we're gonna be here for a while before they write a check. The Africa part comes in after the check is written. But we got to start preparing for that, because if the Chinese are moving in there, then some of us need to be moving in there to try to preserve the heritage that we always talk about, that the stuff that we talk about was taken away from us. And we obviously don't care about it because we're not doing nothing about what's going on over there. But we ain't in no place or no power. All the blacks all around the world that were dispersed, Jamaica, they ain't got no power. I've been there. Living in the slums. Haiti, slums. Controlled by the government. When Trump says shithole country, look at the one we standing in. Yeah, we got a bunch of liberties and all that type of stuff that we can say what we want to say like this. Somebody brought up the point of what happened to the money that went into the Million Man's March. So I was like, okay, I heard everybody was asked to give $1. You know, where are the accounting records? So what I found out was there's 1 million people there, and I talked to a few people that were there, and they were handing this money up to the front. Now, he asked everybody just to give $1. But from the account of eyewitnesses, some people were putting up $5, $10, $20. So how does the number come up to $245,687? I guess maybe they deducted the cost because the estimated crowd was actually about 400,000. Then somebody else put it at double that. I don't know who was doing the counting. But according to this, the march cost was about $1.4 million. That's all the traveling and everything that went into it. There was another $581,000 in management and administrative expenses, bringing the total amount to $2 million. So if all this money did come in and they did raise $2 million, it was all put into all these other costs. Vendor licenses, sales of goods, sponsorship advertisements. So the money went in. I don't think the money was stolen. I just think people didn't, you couldn't put it on for free. And that's what I say every time they say, come on, let's go do a march. This is the type of money that's spent. And since we don't own any travel agencies or bus lines and things like that, we're giving money to these folks. It's 44 million black people in America. Shit, if we were required to give $5 a piece every month, how much would that be? 220 million per month. What could we do with that? We don't want to break away. Well, I think the first thing, and people can hate me all they want, is take back over our communities. Put everybody out. You got to go, Abib. You got to go. You got to go. Yeah, maybe you come back, Abib, but right now you got to go. Because you're not allowed to do it in their neighborhoods. We don't understand. We are in a economic war for our lives, and we don't realize it's for our lives because we got too many educated Negroes. I'm an educated Negro too. I was in college, 5.5 years? But I never went to a job with any expectations of these people were going to do right. You can hope they do right. You can say, look, I came, I worked hard. Okay, well, you're still a nigger. You can even become the president. I've heard people call Obama a nigger. I've heard people in corporate America call Martin Luther King a nigger. And I stood there and I swallowed it. Just so I could be the spook that sat by the door and see the real operations of these people and how these people really feel. And they could never tell me, convince me that they were on my side, because I already understand the game. The game is we want to stand on top of you. Now, you can do everything you want to do if we co-sign it. If it's our idea or our making. See, we got to be a part of your ascension so we can be a part of your destruction. And as long as we got you flabbergasted with this racism that we put on you, we still stacking millions up here. Y'all still talking about money. Y'all not making no moves. Y'all still trying to get us to treat y'all fairly after 400 years. Y'all ain't even tried to reconnect with your people. Don't blame us for how we treat you. This is our house. And in our house, you will always be a kid. Well, there's some good white people. Yeah, pretty much so. What about all the abolitionists that help black people? Okay, like I say, it's a few good white folks out there. Got some good Christian hearts. Okay, it's not enough. Because even though it's good Christians, they know the racists. And they know them well. And they sit at the dinner table with them. And they laugh with them. Just like they always say, all these good white women. No, they sleep with them same white men. And I've seen racism from both sides of them. And that whole women's liberation thing was not about you black women. That was about them getting from underneath they white men and becoming equal with they white men. When that happened, black men and women were already equal. But then it allowed them to put the other plan into effect. Push the black man out. Uplift the black woman. And she took it line, sinking, hooker. And we can't hate her because a lot of us have survived because of the sacrifices of our sisters. So that sacrifice, though, didn't take away our manhood. It was a lot of the sisters that decided, I can do better and raise my son better than his father could. Had an incident like that in the mentoring class, and I was totally against it. I said, no, ma'am, you cannot bring your son and put him in this program because you have a husband and he's at home. And I know me as a man, I would be totally offended if my wife decided to take my son and put him into a program when I am supposed to be the guidance in his life. So no, he cannot be a part of this program. If your situation changed at home because you made that choice in that man. And so things need to change at home before he can be a part of this. And I meant that because that's that man's seed. He's got a responsibility. And I told all the women, and I said, I know, y'all gonna have a different feeling. You can't baby him. You can't coddle him. You can't protect him from the world. But that's something that they learned in the Willie Lynch letter. Because your protection comes with, quite often, the training of your son to be complacent and capitulate to the system inwardly and outwardly constantly. It takes all the revolution out of him because you don't want to revolt, and we can't blame the black women. You don't want to revolt. You happy with it. You went to school and got your education and did what the white man said. Now your reward is this job. And you look at your man and you talk to your man just like the white man does. And you blame your man for not being a success in an organization that doesn't want him to be a success, in a country that doesn't want him to be a success. But you act like he's doing something wrong if he bucks the system. I see it way too often. I talk to too many independent brothers that are out here like me trying to make something happen without them. So this whole Million Man March, when we look at what has changed in these past 25 years, we become more disrespectful to women, disrespectful to our communities. Murder rates stay on the rise across this country. So we have done nothing in the way of changing on a grand scale our behavior. So we've come no closer to the unity that we need, the collectiveness that we need to make real moves and make real changes in this country if we're going to be in this country. And the more I think about it, the more I look at it, and I'm like, Africa sounds better every day. And Africa definitely sounds doable with the right amount of money. Because the Jews, they got land and all this other stuff, factories, training, money, to reestablish themselves in their land at that time. To this day, and they still getting money. I'm thinking, yeah, about $16 trillion. Maybe you ain't got to pay it all at once, but you got to break off a big chunk, about $4 trillion up front, America. So we can get started on this. I'm not out here trying to kumbaya with nobody until we get our stuff together. So people can say and feel any way they want to say or feel. I could care less, because until we get what we're supposed to get, I don't care about what you get. Love, peace, soul, and as we always say out of here, we out of here.
Now if your woman ain't no revolutionary, she'll persuade you to be a fucking slave for the rest of your days. She'll be grooming you on how to behave, teaching you how to coon and buck dance so that you can be safe. If that brother ain't no rider, soldier, no provider, molder of young minds, check it out, you got yourself a bitch. Think about the time that you invested in him. If he's wearing them skinny jeans, you a lesbian. For every 100 black women who ain't locked up, it's only 83 black men remain. Take away 1.5 million black men who might have benefited their women and their children. You don't know a war when it's waged against you, when it makes you drive your baby mama to the clinic just to kill your own. Ain't no legacy to leave behind, cause ain't nobody sitting on your throne. You motherfuckers are asleep in a war zone, living a nightmare, dying in your own home. If you don't stop, you gon' lose what you got left. I'd rather die trying to fight for my last breath. Freedom or death, you asleep in a war zone, living a nightmare, dying in your own home. If you don't fight, you gon' lose what you got left. I'd rather die trying to fight for my last breath. Freedom or death, nigga. Sandra Bland was a rider. She wouldn't have committed suicide, and you a motherfucking liar. It would not be wise to stop when you hear sirens and you see the police behind you, but you don't wanna die. They gon' shoot you if you run. They gon' say that you was going for the police gun. That's why they shot you like 120 times, but you was still coming, so they put another bullet in your lung. Them devils got you praying while they murder, because they know you on that bullshit. They steady with them full clips and body armor. They kill your women in the street, cause they figure you too weak to do anything about it. You some shit, getting fucked in your sleep. They poison you every time you brush your teeth. You don't care, you behave like a slave. A bitch from the cradle to the grave, on your knees with your hands out, begging cause you wanna be saved. Motherfuckers are asleep in a war zone, living a nightmare, dying in your own home. If you don't stop, you gon' lose what you got left. I'd rather die trying to fight for my last breath. Freedom or death, you asleep in a war zone. Living a nightmare, dying in your own home. If you don't fight, you gon' lose what you got left. I'd rather die trying to fight for my last breath. Freedom or death, nigga.